The lesson is titled Esther and the Providence of God. And that last song made reference to God's providential care. And that's a great, great message. I began a series around the first of the year of Bible character sermons. We had a sermon on Joseph, a sermon on Moses, and a sermon about David. And then one of the good sisters here suggested, what about a sermon for one of the ladies in the Bible? So that's today, Esther, a great servant of God and God's providential care. Chapter 1. We're introduced to the time period that King Ahasuerus is the king of Persia. He also sometimes went by the title of Xerxes, which was like Caesar or Pharaoh or those names by reference to their position. King Ahasuerus. He had 4 palaces, and one of them was in Shushan in Persia. Unbelievable kingdom that he ruled. It went all the way from India to Ethiopia, covering thousands of miles and 127 provinces. He decided that he wanted to celebrate his great kingdom, and so he had a 180-day feast. Can you imagine? And the last 7 days were climactic with much drinking, even out of the golden sepulchres, the golden utensils, and every man drank to his fill, the Bible says in Esther chapter 1. Sort of toward the end of that 7th day of heavy drinking, he suggested to his chamberlains that he wanted his beautiful queen Vashti to be brought out before these men. He had showed the riches of his kingdom and the wealth of it. Now he wanted to show off his wife to this drunken assembly of men. She refused. Great woman of character and conviction was Vashti. She would not parade herself in front of these men in such a condition that they were in, and refused. He doesn't know what to do about it. He asked his chamberlains, and they said, you know, if you don't do something, then all of our wives are going to decide they can just sort of do whatever they want to do and not have to obey us. And so he commanded that she be removed from her queenship, that all of her estate and royal property be taken away from her. She lost everything. She lost her wealth, she lost her home, she lost her queenship, but we believe she's got a home in heaven because she was a faithful servant of the Lord. Vashti. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2, we're introduced to Mordecai. Mordecai is a Jew who sits at the gate of the city going in and out of Shushan, and he immediately wants to enter his lovely niece into a beauty contest to see who will be the next queen. Her name is Esther. He raised her from a child because her mom and daddy had died. She was his niece and was beautiful. She won the contest, so Esther will now become the next queen of Persia, and celebrating that by her beauty and achievement there. The chapter ends with a little side note. Doesn't seem to be very important at all, very unusual. The flow is going, talking about Esther and her becoming the next queen, but then all of a sudden the last couple of verses make reference to a thought that's very, very, very important. There were 2 men who were chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, and they have plotted together a plan to assassinate King Ahasuerus. The talk among the people, Mordecai heard daily at the gate. He heard about their assassination plan. He sent word to Esther, who gave word to King Ahasuerus what was going on, and they investigated it. They found them to be guilty. They were both hanged. So Mordecai becomes very much involved in this situation, but it's sort of a side note that what's Bigthan and Teresh got anything to do with Esther? Well, very much, a whole lot. In just a moment we'll see. That was chapter 2. Chapter 3 of the book of Esther. Now there are 10 chapters, but we're not going to cover all of them, okay? Chapter 3, we're introduced to another very important character in this great Bible story. His name is Haman. Haman was a prince, very intelligent, very good steward, and he is given special promotion by King Ahasuerus because of his talent, his work, and he has achieved a lot of wealth on the side. I don't know how he did all that, and maybe inherited it, but he's a rich man as well. And so he gives a great promotion to Haman to become the prime minister, basically, you'd say, of the Persian Empire. He is the second greatest man next to King Ahasuerus. Oh, he enjoys this honor and prestige. But there's a thorn in his side, and it was that as he would go in and out of the gate, there sat Mordecai. Mordecai would not bow down to him. Mordecai would not rise up when he passed through. Mordecai did not reverence him, did not respect him, and did not honor him, as all the others were doing. And it grieved him. It caused great indignation in his evil heart. He couldn't stand it. He had all of this achievement, but one man's unwilling to bow to him, and so he came up with an evil scheme in chapter 3. It was that he presented to King Ahasuerus, there are some people in your kingdom, probably about 1 million of them from India all the way to Ethiopia. Might have been about 1 million of them. And these people, they serve their own God. They don't serve you, they don't obey you, they obey their God, which that was not really true. They did obey Jehovah God, the Jews, but they did respect the king as well, but he didn't bring that out. And he said, I'll tell you what I'll do, king, if you'll let me remove these people from your kingdom, I'll put 10,000 talents into the treasury of the king. 10,000 talents will go into the treasury. Well, the king likes the sound of that. That's a lot of tax money, and he can use it, and he wants it, and he said, all right. And so they write the letter out, send it to all the provinces. It has the king's seal on it, and it said that on such and such a date that there will be an uprising, and all the Jews are to be put to death in the kingdom. That's chapter 3. Haman, the wicked Haman, prime minister of Persia at this time. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is introduced to us the wailing of Mordecai. He sat at the gate and he wailed, the Bible says, wailed out anguish and sorrow. He and all of his family are going to be put to death. He and all of his family are going to lose everything they've had, plus their lives, because of the evil plans of the king and of Haman. So he is upset emotionally and disturbed. Some of the servants to the queen, Esther, told her what her uncle, how he was conducting himself, behaving down at the gate. And she sent one of her servants, Haltak. Haltak, go find out what's going on. Haltak goes down to Mordecai and he said, what's happening? And he showed him the letter that had been sent to all the provinces about on such and such a date the Jews should be put to death. And he said he also has put 10,000 talents into the king's treasury. Haltak obtained all of the information. So Mordecai said, you go back and you tell Esther, Queen Esther, his niece, she's got to do something. She's got to help us out here. Well, she listened to that, and she sent word back by Haltak, and she said, tell Mordecai, I can't do anything. I only have the authority to go in the king's presence when he requested. Anyone that goes without being requested, he sits in his throne. He has in his hand a golden scepter. And if anyone approaches without planning ahead and permission ahead, if he does not accept them, he pulls back on that golden scepter and their lives are taken immediately. If he accepts them, he goes forward with the golden scepter. And she said, I haven't seen him in 30 days. He hasn't sent for me. I can't do it. I have no right. It's the law of the Medes and the Persians. Haltak goes back and tells Mordecai what Esther said. And he said, you tell her. Does she think because she lives in a palace that she's not going to be affected? Her daddy and mama are going to die. Her property's all going to be taken away. You tell her she's got to do something for this to save us. She's the only one who can. She's got to do it. When she heard that, she said, Haltak, you go back and tell him. For 3 days, we're going to all fast. All of my servants are going to fast. You get all the Jews that you can to fast. We're going to pray. We're going to fast, not eat or drink for 3 days and nights. And then I'm going to go before the king, unsummoned. Of course, the famous thought he gave to her, Mordecai, was, who knows but what thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this. You know, you've got a place, and you're the only one that can help us. Who knows but what you're come to the kingdom for such a time as this. And then she said to Huldai, you tell him, I'm going to go. And if I perish, I perish. One of the great quotes from the Bible. If I perish, I perish. That's chapter 4, the wailing chapter, I call it. Chapter 5. She, after the third day, approaches the king in his courtyard. There he sits on his throne. What will he do with the golden scepter? Will he go forward or backward? He saw her standing there in the shades of the tree, and he said, Queen Esther, come. He gave her the approval to come before him. She kissed the top of the golden scepter. No wonder. And he said, what is on your mind? I'll grant anything you want, up to half of the kingdom. He's having a good day. He was having a good day. Up to half the kingdom. She said, well, I'd like to invite you and Haman to come to a banquet today that I've prepared. He said, all right. And she said, then tomorrow there's something I'd like to talk to you about. He said, okay, we'll come to the banquet and we'll meet with you tomorrow. He said, Haman, hurry up, let's go and just get ready. And he hurried him up, went to the banquet. Haman goes home and he gathers together his friends and his wife and family. And he said, you know who I ate with today? I ate with the king and queen. I was the only one there besides them. Yeah, I did. And he showed his relatives, his family, his wealth, and he showed them, talked to them about what all the position that he now had in the kingdom. He's prime minister and all that. And they rejoiced with him. They said, this is really great. You've really accomplished a lot. He said, I've got one thing that bothers me. He said, Mordecai doesn't respect me. Mordecai doesn't bow down to me. Mordecai is a thorn in my flesh. And his lovely wife came up with a brilliant idea. I wonder if she thought about that when she will see her 10 sons dying on the gallows. She said, why don't you build a gallows, put it up 75 foot up in the air, 50 cubits, and hang Mordecai to death? Sound like a pretty good idea. That'd get rid of this old troublemaker that won't reverence him. That's chapter 7. Chapter 8. The next day, when Esther has an opportunity to present her talk to King Ahasuerus, she says to him, chapter 7, I should say, there's been a decree given by you that all of my people shall be put to death on such and such a day. He acts like he does not have any knowledge of this at all. What? Where did this come from? Now, all the time Mordecai told her, do not tell them that you're a Jew. Do not tell them you're a Jew. So now she tells them she is Jewish and that my people are going to be destroyed on this day. He said, who came up with this plan? She said to his face, sitting there next to the king, wicked Haman. Wicked Haman came up with this plan. The king gets up and he walks in the garden. He's so angry and upset. And he's had this servant that he thought a lot of, and he finds out that he's scheming evil things and plans, and he's trying to reason out what to do. Haman is in the pleading to Esther to please save my life. Please don't let my life be taken. Please help me. The king walks in and he assumed the wrong thing. He thought that Haman was making approaches toward Esther, advances. And are you going to do such mischievous thing in my very presence? And he ordered him to be taken, and one of the chamberlains said, hang him on the gallows that he's building for Mordecai. The king said, sounds good to me. And they did. And they also took his 10 sons as well. That was chapter 7. Chapter 8, Esther says to King Ahasuerus, please change that letter you sent to all the provinces about the death of my people on such a day. Please save my people. He said, I can't. It's impossible. It is a law of the Medes and the Persians that once a letter has been signed, you never know who's going to get the next letter or who would not. It cannot be changed. It's an impossibility in this day of communication. That's the way it's going to be. She said, what can we do? He said, I can send another letter, and to those who will be able to receive it, that the Jews can band together, they can rise up and defend themselves, and the people should leave them alone, and we'll see how well it goes. Chapter 9 and verse 22. It went well. Lives were spared. The Jews were saved. And that most famous Jew of all, Jesus Christ, will now still be able to come and dwell among his people. Verse 22 says, the day of sorrow was turned into a day of joy. By God's providential care of Esther, and in Esther's life, the events that take place, this marvelous story, the day of sorrow was turned into the day of joy. 9:22. There are some great lessons in this whole story. We see the effects of drinking. Nothing good has ever come out of drinking. Much sorrow, much grief, much anguish. Many a tear has been shed because of the effects of alcohol. As a lady Sycamore said many years ago, Jeff, Sister Hicks, she said, I told my mama, her daddy drank. She said, if I ever start dating somebody that drinks, you go out and you take an axe and you chop my head off. Well, a bunch of young people was in her living room sitting there listening to her. I looked at her, both their eyes got big as saucers. She knew the sorrow of alcohol, the effects of alcohol and drinking was very much a part of this sad story. In chapter 3, when Haman and the king are sitting there talking about the evil plan to destroy the Jews, you know they were sitting and drinking, it said. No remorse for the poor lives that are going to be taken. No concern for the sorrow there. They were drinking. The effects of drinking. We see another lesson, the providence of God. We see a lesson concerning the evil of vanity and pride that old Haman was so guilty of. Had so much, so many blessings. Why couldn't he have been content? Why couldn't he have been thankful? He even sat down and talked with Mordecai. Mordecai, I know you don't like me. I don't understand it. But listen, you have your rights and I have mine. Let's try to be comrades, okay, in this kingdom. That would have been a wise thing to have done. But no, the vanity of one act kept and caused great, great sorrow. There's a lesson here about the strength of Vashti, that she was doing the right thing, even though it cost her in this life a great amount. But we believe she's got the hope of eternal life to come. Yes, from sorrow to joy. Esther is a great story of the providence of God. Is the providence of God working in your heart today, in your life? I think so. There are many ways that God moves in mysterious ways, taught and sanctioned by His holy word, of course. But He does want His will and His way to be obeyed and followed, and promises great blessings to come forward. Have you ever obeyed the gospel? Have you ever gone astray as a Christian and need to be restored? If there's something we can do to assist you in serving the Lord Jesus, today could be the greatest decision of your life. And if we can help you in any way, would you come now while we stand and sing? Lord shall sound and time shall